The markets are closed, but the business stories are just heating up. Hello, I'm Raine Musñgi. Catch up with us on Newsfeed Business. U.S. President Donald Trump has demanded that OPEC lower oil prices and for the world to drop interest rates. He also warned global business and political leaders via video conference at the World Economic Forum in Davos, Switzerland on Thursday. They will face tariffs if they make their products anywhere but the U.S.
My administration is acting with unprecedented speed to fix the disasters we've inherited from a totally inept group of people and to solve every single crisis facing our country. This begins with confronting the economic chaos caused by the failed policies of the last administration. Over the past 4 years, our government racked up $8 trillion in wasteful deficit spending and inflicted nation-wrecking energy restrictions, crippling regulations, and hidden taxes like never before. The inflation rate we are inheriting remains 50% higher than the historic target. It was the highest inflation probably in the history of our country. That's why from the moment I took office, I've taken rapid action to reverse each and every one of these radical left policies that created this calamity, in particular with immigration, crime, and inflation. My message to every business in the world is very simple. Come make your product in America, and we will give you among the lowest taxes of any nation on earth. We're bringing them down very substantially, even from the original Trump tax cuts. But if you don't make your product in America, which is your prerogative, then very simply you will have to pay a tariff, differing amounts, but a tariff which will direct hundreds of billions of dollars and even trillions of dollars into our treasury to strengthen our economy and pay down debt. Under the Trump administration, there will be no better place on earth to create jobs, build factories, or grow a company than right here in the good old USA.
Despite robust comments on the tariffs he wants to put in place, Trump did not provide specifics at a time when markets are on edge over his plans. Oil prices turned negative as Trump spoke, while the euro dipped and the U.S. dollar swung between gains and losses against a basket of foreign currencies. The S&P 500 opened new tab benchmark of U.S. stocks rose to a near all-time high.
I think that obviously, Trump's comments in Davos shows he's going to be a very active president. I mean, it's been very busy the last few days. I think the specter of what his administration would bring, we've already had that, a couple of years ago. And stocks usually like that. Stocks like deregulation, stocks like holding some folks accountable.
The World Trade Organization chief warns trade wars would have catastrophic consequences for global growth. WTO Director General Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala spoke at the World Economic Forum session on trade, where U.S. President Trump's tariff threats were discussed.
If we have tit-for-tat retaliation, whether it's 25%, tariff 60%, and we go to where we were in the 1930s, we are going to see double-digit global GDP losses. Double-digit. That's catastrophic. Everyone will pay. Everyone. And the poor countries will pay even more. Second, if we just do not quite tit for tat, but even a version of that, let's say we break into two trading blocks and, we're not trading across the world, and we layer in trade policy uncertainty. We've done that work too. We're going to lose 6.4% of real global GDP. In the longer term. That's like losing the economy of Japan and Korea combined.
The EU Trade Commissioner also said Trump should address income inequality rather than look to tariffs to solve political problems in the U.S.
The U.S. is having also one of the best growth rates among advanced economies. So on aggregate, things seem to be working actually quite well in the United States. Where there are some issues, they are probably more linked with income inequality, because it's true that income inequality in US is much bigger, like say in EU and in the most unequal EU member state is still much more equal in terms of incomes than United States. And that's obviously is generating also certain political problems, which Trump may be now trying to solve with tariffs, but focusing on addressing income inequality probably would be most efficient way of addressing those issues.
U.S. President Trump wants to lower global oil prices. Trump said he will ask Saudi Arabia and the OPEC to bring down the cost of oil. That's even as Saudi Arabia's Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman said Thursday the kingdom wants to invest $600 billion in the U.S. over the next 4 years. The readout did not elaborate on where those investments in trade could be placed. The U.S. in recent years has increasingly pulled away from relying on Saudi oil exports, while Riyadh relies predominantly on U.S.-made weapons and defense systems.
And it's also reported today in the papers that Saudi Arabia will be investing at least $600 billion in America, but I'll be asking the Crown Prince, who's a fantastic guy, to round it out to around $1 trillion. I think they'll do that because we've been very good to them. And I'm also going to ask Saudi Arabia and OPEC to bring down the cost of oil. If the price came down, the Russia-Ukraine war would end immediately. Right now, the price is high enough that that war will continue. You got to bring down the oil price. You got to end that war.
Some of his harshest criticism, though, was reserved for traditional U.S. allies Canada and the European Union, who he threatened again with new tariffs while berating their import policies, blaming them for the U.S.'s trade goods deficit with these partners.
Canada has been very tough to deal with over the years, and it's not fair that we should have a $200 billion or $250 billion deficit. We don't need them to make our cars, and they make a lot of them. We don't need their lumber because we have our own forests, et cetera, et cetera. We don't need their oil and gas. We have more than anybody.
Roughly 75% of Canada's exports go to the U.S., while Canada accounts for a much smaller 17% of U.S. exports. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau has said that Ottawa is ready to respond to any tariff threats that Trump makes. Delegates were left with mixed feelings after U.S. President Donald Trump's virtual address to business leaders before the last day of the World Economic Forum in Davos. Amnesty International Secretary General Agnes Calama says Trump has a very strong American vision, but he lacks vision for the rest of the world. Calama is a former UN Special Rapporteur on extrajudicial killings who has consistently condemned violence in the Philippines.
Il n'a pas de vision pour le reste du monde.
He doesn't have a vision for the rest of the world. He has a very strong American vision, and I understand why Americans vote for him. It's a vision of America first, the workers first, the American banks first, the American investments first, etc. But on a global scale, all of this won't allow stability. It will only reinforce inequalities and insecurity. So the complete lack of vision for the rest of the world is shocking.
Meanwhile, former U.S. ambassador to the European Union said being able to have 100 executive orders ready in 2.5 months was extraordinary and showed that Trump came prepared.
You have to understand, we have a 2.5-month transition. To be able to have 100 executive orders ready in 2.5 months is extraordinary. So he's ready. He's got a much more loyal group than his first term. And that may be better or worse depending on what you think about his policies, but they're going to be there.
For a Swiss cartoonist, the reality is beyond caricature when it comes to Trump.
First impression, the reality is beyond caricature with Trump. We expected it, of course, but he does it in such a tacky way, at such a speed that we are all a little overwhelmed, we are all in a state of shock. People laughed because he used humor, and populists know how to use humor. But behind this humor, there were threats, a lot of threats, especially towards the European Union and all the people who are not going to do business with the United States. So he put everyone on guard today.
Well, U.S. President Donald Trump issued an executive order Thursday effectively banning the establishment of a central bank digital currency in a move long supported by congressional Republicans. Agence France Presse reports Trump's order would, he said, protect Americans from the risks of central bank digital currencies, or CBDCs, which threaten the stability of the financial system, individual privacy, and the sovereignty of the U.S. CBDCs, also known as digital dollars, could in theory be issued by the Federal Reserve and be interchangeable with physical dollars, giving the U.S. central bank control over the supply of virtual currency and guaranteeing its value. The same executive order mandated the creation of a cryptocurrency working group tasked with proposing new digital asset regulations and exploring the creation of a national cryptocurrency stockpile, making good on its promise to quickly overhaul U.S. crypto policy. Bitcoin was little changed at about $103,200 Friday morning in Singapore. Smaller tokens such as Ether and Solana traded in tight ranges. The yen was choppy after the Bank of Japan delivered a widely anticipated rate hike on Friday. The BOJ raised rates by 25 basis points at the conclusion of its two-day policy meeting. The yen swung between losses and gains in choppy trade shortly after the decision to end little change at 156 per dollar. Focus now turns to BOJ Governor Kazuo Ueda's post-meeting briefing later today for clues on the pace and timing of further increases. Executive Chairman Donald Tang says Shein is not fast fashion, it is fashion on demand. Tang tells CNBC in Davos Chinese online retailer Shein micro-produces rather than mass-produces the styles the consumer desires while giving value for money and laser-focused accountability for the last 12 years. He also says that as long as Trump's tariff policies are applied equally to all countries, Shein's affordability will not be affected. North American Basketball League, NBA, is looking at the opportunity to create a potential basketball league in Europe. NBA boss Adam Silver confirmed Thursday that meetings were taking place between the National Basketball Association and several stakeholders in European basketball, such as club presidents and FIBA. The NBA is a closed league with no promotion or relegation, unlike the traditional European League model. The next NBA Global Games have not yet been announced, but Silver invited fans to stay tuned.
Europe continues to develop some of the very best players in the world. Many of our most recent MVPs, of course, are European. We think that the commercial opportunity has not kept pace with the growth of the game. And what we do at the NBA is we run leagues. We, of course, run the WNBA. We have the league in Africa I mentioned. We have the G League. We have a 2K video league. So we operate 5 different leagues, and we think it's an expertise we have. And so we are looking very closely to see if there's an opportunity to professionalize the game to another level here, to create a larger commercial opportunity. The NBA is a unique league in my mind in that, of course, we represent the best basketball, and with the WNBA, the best women's basketball, but it's also a lifestyle brand. And I think that's something that comes up in many of the meetings, that there's a strong association with music, with fashion, with culture, with art. And I think there's a real appreciation for that the NBA is even something a little bit different than basketball. This is pure basketball. And I think the way to grow this sport is to appeal to people beyond those who are hardcore basketball fans. And that's where our success has come in the United States and elsewhere. It's about the NBA brand. And I think that the notion we've heard back is that if you can bring those elements of the NBA brand and bring those to Europe as part of some structured league potentially, we think there's a real opportunity.
The latest business and economy news from around the country in a moment. Newsfeed Business will be back. Stay with us on BNC.
Ciao, mabuhay. You are watching The Word Exposed.
Prepare our hearts as we dive deeper into our faith and receive the strength from God's Word. Join Cardinal Luis Antonio Tagle as he shares the reflection we need for the rest of the week.
We pray that the Word of God would find fulfillment in your life and His blessings be always upon you.
Every Sunday, 7 a.m. with replays at 3 p.m. The questions.
Why sounds very serious, but
Seryoso,
watch
no?
it.
Di ba parang, crime, may away pamilya, etc.
The issues.
Who are supposed to be on the faces of our bank, of our money?
Bangko Sentral, no? There is a numismatic committee who meets and decides.
We clarify matters.
The 1,000 peso bill was changed from the three heroes of World War II to the Philippine Eagle.
Pinky Web is always on point.
Welcome back to Newsfeed Business. Artificial intelligence has delivered personalized customer service, operational savings, and better productivity. Let's get that story from our Soo-Jin Kim, who joins us on the line. Soo-Jin, go ahead.
Yes, Raine, artificial intelligence is rapidly transforming the contact center industry, enabling companies to deliver more personalized customer interactions, streamline operations, and increase efficiency. Leveraging AI technology such as real-time response assistance and sentiment analysis, businesses are now able to drive better outcomes and reduce operational costs. Right now, we are at the launch of a new player in the BPO industry. Helport AI is at the forefront of this shift, introducing a powerful AI-driven platform. The platform combines generative AI with real-time actionable insights. AI will essentially provide possible responses to agents, feeding them professional, leveled-up responses. The company's suite of tools includes real-time agent assist, quality assurance, and a comprehensive management suite. These solutions promise to streamline workflows, enhance decision-making, and empower agents with human-validated knowledge bases, resulting in faster issue resolution and improved customer satisfaction. Customer results show a 75% reduction in training time and a 17.5% increase in sales performance, as well as a 25% improvement in customer satisfaction. Raine, actually, I was able to have a dialogue with IDPAP President Jack Madrid a minute ago, and he shared that with AI, customer satisfaction, productivity, and efficiency have all gone up, and has, according to him, created more jobs. And those are our latest updates for now. Back to you, Raine.
Well, real-time agent assist and better resolution sound good. Thank you so much for that report, Soo-Jin Kim. Now, the Philippines will benefit from the billion-dollar investment of U.S. President Donald Trump in artificial intelligence. Philippine ambassador to the World Trade Organization, Manuel Antonio Tihanki, tells Bilyonaryo News Channel's Business 360 the Philippines is a major supplier of semiconductor chips and has $50 billion worth of trade in the industry. Trump earlier announced a $500 billion private sector investment to fund infrastructure for AI to outpace rival nations in the business-critical technology. Meanwhile, expectations of higher prices will result in higher spending in essential goods. It's according to a study of the Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas. BSP explains that this may accelerate inflation during periods when it exceeds the target. Central banks add that the household spending will particularly increase for food and non-alcoholic beverages, fuel, and utilities. In other stories, the Department of Human Settlements and Urban Development, or DHSUD, assures It is building climate-resilient housing, especially in areas frequented by typhoons. DHSUD Undersecretary Henry Yap tells Bilyonaryo News Channel's Weather HQ that the agency is on target to turn over all 4,702 remaining Yolanda housing units in Eastern Visayas before the year ends, while completing 56 ongoing projects under the 4PH or Pambansang Pabahay para sa Pilipino program. It's in various phases of construction and development in Luzon, Visayas, and Mindanao. Under President Marcos's directive to build climate-resilient houses, Yap says these homes are designed to withstand the impact of natural disasters.
Our standards have been upgraded to already consider resilient housing. No? In the case of housing, our National Housing Authority already incorporates that as part of the standards. So when we now bid out the projects for construction, we make sure that they adhere to the requirements or the standards that have been provided.
Philippine shares closing this week's final trading day in negative territory after the S&P 500 inched up and the Bank of Japan tightened in monetary policy. The PSE index was down by more than 1% to close at 62.96, finishing as the worst performer in Asia. For the week, the main index ended half a percentage point lower. Among the sectoral indices, only mining and oil ended in the green, with financials falling the most with almost 2%. Decliners, meanwhile, narrowly outpaced advancers 95 to 86. Total value turnover stood at 4.7 billion pesos. Majority of the day's most active stocks also ended in the red, with Converge falling the most at 5%. Also on Friday, the peso is currently trading at 58.39 amid expectation of widening trade deficit and protected decline of remittances due to U.S. President Trump's restriction on migrants. And that's a wrap for today's business. Thanks so much for making us your daily source of financial insights. I'm Raine Musñgi. Join us again on Monday as we bring you the stories that help you plan your next big, bold moves in business. Only here on the Bilyonaryo News Channel. Follow the Money is next at 4:30.